Happy Halloween, everyone. Today we're going to be playing a special backport in Pokemon Yellow. I'm going to be beating the game with only a Shedinja. And thanks to Snowy, this backport does have Wonder Guard. These are the rules for the challenge. They can also be found in the description. Now let's get into it. For base stats, Shedinja has 1 HP. It will always have 1 HP. It has 90 attack, 45 defense, 40 speed, and 30 special. In Generation 1, its crit chance is 7.81%. Another quirk about this Pokemon is that it has the erratic growth rate. And yes, Snowy also backported this for Shedinja, so in the early game it levels up incredibly slowly, and in the late game it will take the least amount of experience to reach level 100. In terms of move pool, Shedinja starts with Scratch, Harden, and Leech Life. Harden is a very hilarious move because while we can increase our defense, Pokemon can only damage us if they deal super effective damage. That's how Wonder Guard works. Plus, with 1 hit point, if I take damage, I will always faint. So there isn't much utility in raising your defense. At least that's what I thought when I started this challenge. We're going to talk about that a lot more later into the video. Just hold on to Harden for now in your minds because it will be very relevant. Beyond that, through level up, Shedinja learns Fury Swipes, Mind Reader, Confuse Ray, and Shadow Ball. I didn't put together this backport, Snowy did, and they gave it Mind Reader and Shadow Ball, so that's why I've included these 2 moves. And honestly, I'm kind of happy that they did because through TM and HM, Shedinja learns very few moves. I'm going to read all of them now. Toxic, Double Edge, Hyper Beam, Mega Drain, Dig, Mimic, Double Team, Reflect, Bide, Dream Eater, Rest, Substitute, Cut, and Flash. Honestly, not a very good set. It's nice that I get Dig, a base 100 power move that deals physical damage, but Mega Drain is also funny alongside Leech Life. I'm never going to gain back any health dealing damage with these moves. Okay, so let's talk about Brock, because this one isn't as simple as you might think. While Wonder Guard works with type interactions in the game, some moves bypass these altogether. Specifically, moves that deal fixed damage. So I'm thinking of Psywave, Nightshade, Seismic Toss, Sonic Boom, that kind of thing. But also Bide. And that's where Shedinja's speed is a major liability in the early game, because if I can't stall out Brock's Onix using Harden, then it will deal damage back to me with Bide. Luckily, Shedinja has neutral damage with Leech Life, but I'm more worried about leveling it up to get the speed stat required to move first against Onix. I'm gonna need 24, and with the erratic growth rate, I level up so slowly in the early game. As I fight early game trainers for experience, let's go through Shedinja's type effectiveness, because this chart is wild. It is damaged normally by no types, and it resists no types. It's immune to normal, fighting, poison, ground, bugs, steel, water, grass, electric, psychic, ice, dragon, and fairy. But it is weak to and exclusively takes damage from flying, rock, ghost, fire, and dark type moves, the last of which will not be relevant for Pokemon Yellow. So really there are only 4 types that can hit us in the game. Luckily, the ghost type only features 1 damage dealing move, which is Lick. And there are fire types, but they come later in the playthrough, mostly on Blaine's team, which is also very concerning because his Pokemon are quite fast. That said, in the early game, there are no flying, rock, ghost, or fire type moves, so what that means is that none of the early game trainers can deal any damage to Shedinja. All of these battles are free experience. The first Pokemon in the entire game that can deal damage to Shedinja is the rival's Spearow in his battle on Route 22, so I'm definitely going to skip that battle because I don't want to have to reset and waste time. Although leaving that experience on the table is a little bit painful when I am really hungry for experience. I want to level up as fast as possible. By the time I clear the forest, my Shedinja is only level 9. This is not going well. Also, my speed stat is 15. After beating the junior trainer in Brock's gym, I have 16 speed, so it looks like Shedinja is gaining 1 point per level. That means I would need 8 more levels to get 24 speed, so Shedinja would fight Brock at level 18. Right now, that feels like it's going to take way too long, so let's see if maybe I can luck through at level 10. But first, the sponsor of this video, Brilliant. If you don't know, Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in math, data analysis, programming, and AI. I know you like these topics because you're watching my videos. The lessons are designed to be uniquely effective with a first principles approach helping you to build understanding from the ground up. You'll develop critical thinking skills through problem solving. Brilliant also helps you develop a powerful daily learning habit. And it's even easier to learn now with their new mobile experience. So on my channel, I've done a lot of programming to make these videos possible, the overlay as well as these backports themselves. You can start learning to code with, for example, their course on applied Python programming. Also, they've got a course on calculus in case you want to go further into mathematics. And finally, AI is the trending topic right now, so they've got many courses for you to help you understand stand LLMs. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for a free 30 days, visit brilliant.org/scotsthoughts or scan the QR code on screen. Or you can click on the link in the description. You'll also receive 20% off an annual premium subscription. Now let's face Brock. Okay, Geodudes first, and one type interaction I always forget about, and I think a lot of people forget about, is the fact that bug types deal neutral damage to rock ground types. It always feels to me like the rock type should resist bug moves, but it doesn't, and neither does the ground type. The bug type, though, resists ground type moves, and I think that's where the confusion comes from. Plus, rock feels like a sturdy type, and it should be able to resist the puny efforts of a tiny bug. Okay, Geodude's no problem, it only has tackle. Let's move on to Onix. This is where things get complicated. Sand Attack seems like it would help here because I can lower the Onix's accuracy and hopefully make Bide miss, but in Generation 1, and only in Generation 1, Bide bypasses accuracy checks and hits regardless of the accuracy stage on the Pokemon. So, as you can see here, Bide hits and Shedinja faints. That's my first reset. Okay, just for your reference, I paused the game when I spawned in the overworld. After resetting, the clock is at 7 minutes and 7 seconds, so let's see how much time it takes me to train all the way until I have the outspeed against Onix. Along the way, I sometimes run into Pidgeotto, which are a 1% encounter in exclusively yellow version. These give fantastic experience yields. Defeating this one levels me up to 14, where Shedinja can learn Fury Swipes. Where Sand Attack isn't very effective against Brock's Onix, this move could be because it deals multiple hit points of damage every turn. Still, my speed stat isn't where it needs to be, so I'm going to continue training. Although I have gained more speed than I was expecting, so it looks like I'm only going to need level 15 or 16. When Shedinja levels up to 15, it goes from 22 speed to 24 speed, so I have what I need. Let's face Brock. Now that I can always outspeed the Onix, every time it goes for Bide, I'm just going to spam Harden, wasting time, then I'll take no damage. Because the way these mechanics pair together, unless I make a mistake, I cannot lose. So Brock is defeated, and I've earned myself a 12.5% boost to my attack stat. Inside Mount Moon, I do some optional training against trainers because I want experience. I want to be able to move first against the rival Spearow on Nugget Bridge because I'm scared of it using Peck and one-shotting me. In this fight though, he still does not have good AI, so he doesn't know to prioritize this move, meaning the Spearow will have a chance of using other moves, and I could just squeeze through with luck. At the end of Mount Moon, when I'm facing Jesse and James, I'm around level 17. It's here where I want to bring up the Poison type interaction. In Generation 1, the Poison type does super effective damage to Bug type Pokemon, and Bug type moves deal super effective damage to Poison type Pokemon. This interaction was changed in Generation 2, but even though that's how things are in Generation 1, it doesn't mean that Shedinja takes super effective damage from Poison type moves, because the Ghost type resists the Poison type. So the Ekans and the Coughing Cure that both have Poison moves cannot inflict damage to Shedinja. And as I mentioned before, Bite is not a Dark type move, that typing doesn't exist in this game, and as I've said in the other Pokemon Yellow backports, I'm not going to be backporting the Steel type or the Dark type for enemy Pokemon, because that changes the fundamental Pokemon Yellow experience. With Jesse and James defeated, this is where I start to think about Avril Lavigne, because things are about to get complicated. I have two choices, fight the rival on Nugget Bridge or fight Misty in her gym. Now Misty feels like the immediate choice because she has water and normal type moves which can't do any damage to Shedinja. But there's a complicating factor here because right in front of her is this junior trainer who has a Goldeen, and it has Peck on its moveset. So either of the two choices that I have to make right now will run Shedinja into a Pokemon that has a flying type move which can knock it out. I know that the Goldeen is slower than the rival Spearow, so I decided to face it instead. However, it still has 3 more speed than Shedinja, so it can move first. And unfortunately for me, turn 1 it goes for Peck. There aren't a lot of options. I could face the other swimmer in the gym and then grind up to level 20 maybe to get the outspeed on the Goldeen, but I don't think that's going to be time efficient. Fighting her over and over again and waiting for the AI just not to choose Peck because she doesn't have good AI is going to be the faster choice. This results in 3 resets, and the last of them I want to draw your attention to. Goldeen uses Supersonic, and yes, Shedinja can deal self-inflicted damage to itself. This is another way that it can faint during battles. I just want to bring up the hilarious interaction of choosing to teach Shedinja Double Edge and then recoiling yourself. I don't like recoil moves, but this is a Pokemon where they just really don't work at all. After defeating the junior trainer on my 4th attempt, then I backtrack and face the swimmer. I'm not really sure why I did this, I can't remember. I think I just wanted as much experience as possible. Maybe I can level up 2 more times and have the outspeed on the rival's Spearow. But it has 33 speed, so that seems unlikely. Now, let's face Misty. This one, as I said, is straightforward. I am going to win no matter what. She cannot deal damage to me in any way. After defeating the Staryu, Shedinja levels up to 19 where I can learn Mind Reader, but I'm going to say no to this move. Last is Starmie. It takes me very little time because Leech Life does super effective damage. Misty holds off on using her X-Defend until later into the fight, and it only takes me 4 turns to knock out her ace. Okay, rival on Nugget Bridge. Let's see how this goes. Spearow is up first. He doesn't have good AI, but he selects Fury Attack, doing nothing. My Scratch does just a bit less than half. Then Spearow chooses Peck. Okay. So we faint. The thing about the Rivals team is, look at all of his moves. The only non-normal move is Peck. So once I defeat the Spearow, I win this fight. In the next battle, I'm choosing Fury Swipes. I don't think this is the right choice. Its accuracy alone makes it just less consistent. I was hoping for something like a critical hit or maybe a 5-turn to 2-shot the Spearow. In the end, I miss, but the flying type does not choose Peck, so I win the fight overall. That said, I'm not going to skip through the rest of the fight just yet because the Sandshrew can still use Sand Attack just to annoy me. All this does is slow my inevitable victory down. For Nugget Bridge, I'm going to summarize very quickly for all of you. None of the Pokemon here have any moves that can damage Shedinja. Yes, there are flying types, but they don't have any flying type moves because in Generation 1, Gust is a normal type move. Later on Route 25, there is a Geodude. There are several of these, but they don't know Rock Throw yet because their level is too low. Outside Cerulean City, I face the Digging Rocket, defeat his Machop and Drowsy, both which cannot damage Shedinja, and this victory gives me the TM for Dig, which I teach in the place of Fury Swipes. Now things should get a lot faster. I've been relying on Scratch and Leech Life throughout this section of the game, but with Dig, my damage is greatly improved, and Shedinja's physical attack is actually quite decent. It's unfortunate I can't leverage this move against Sandy, the very next trainer, but again, she can only be a nuisance with Sand Attack. In this case, she isn't, but the trainer that follows her also has Spearow, which knows Peck. Luckily for me, it does not use it, instead choosing Fury Attack, and I knock it out over 2 turns. Then I get to use Dig for the first time and one-shot his Raticate. Alright, that feels good. Off to the races. Let's get going. Well, kind of, because things start getting a little bit more complicated on the SSN. First of all, it's weird to me, but I'm not going to pick up Rest. Healing with Shedinja makes absolutely no sense. I am going to fight this gentleman to get access to a rare candy, and his fire types can deal damage to Shedinja. Well, only one of them, just the Ponyta. The Growlithe doesn't actually have a fire type move. And there's actually a big problem here. The Ponyta has 38 speed and my Shedinja has 35 speed, so it moves first, uses Ember, and knocks me out. I did not anticipate this, and I've never really had to be super conscious of the Ponyta's speed. The only time it was relevant was with Parasect when I did that race, but I have long since forgotten to check the speed interaction of my Pokemon with his Ponyta. I guess this reset is a good reminder. To rectify this problem, I'll go back earlier in the ship and fight a bunch of other optional trainers to level up and hopefully get 39 speed fairly soon. While doing this, I fight another gentleman who has fire types. These Growlithe do have Ember, but they're not fast enough to outspeed me, so I can one-shot with Dig. Leveling to 24 takes me up to 37 speed, so I'm only going to need one more level. I get this over in the wing where I can pick up Rest, and I am going to grab the TM. I guess I can sell it for money later on. Like, I'm here, I might as well pick it up. Then Shedinja levels up to 25, and its speed stat goes up from 37 to 38. Are you kidding me? I have no speed tied with the Ponyta, so it can still knock me out. But I don't want to level up one more time just to guarantee. I'll chance this fight and hopefully get the win. On my first attempt, Ponyta moves first, hits Ember, so another reset. But only in my second fight I move first and Dig one-shots. That allows me to pick up an additional rare candy and then face the rival. This fight is the first time he has good AI, so his Spearow will always choose Peck against Bug-type Pokemon. I'm lucky here that his team hasn't leveled up very much, so my 38 speed is faster than the Spearow. I go for Scratch. I wasn't expecting a one-hit, but I managed to get it because of a lucky crit. Of course, you're going to be curious, was that damage range required? And the answer is obviously yes. Scratch normally would do between 66 and 79% damage to the Spearow, and this leaves me really dreading my follow-up playthrough. Am I going to have to level up to the point where Scratch one-hits the Spearow? I think I am. Once again though, as was the case against the rival on Nugget Bridge, here his team has no other moves that can deal damage to Shedinja. And following in that exact theme, we have Serge, who is the next gym leader. His Raichu has nothing that can deal damage to us, and Shedinja's Dig is able to one-shot. Normally I make fun of Serge, but today he is actually completely useless. Normally Serge can give you the occasional reset, and I make fun of him for being very inconsistent and just generally a bad gym leader. But in this playthrough, he can actually do nothing to you, which is rare. I think the only other Pokemon that feel this way against Serge are ground types, but even they sometimes have resets to him. Like earlier in the year I got a reset with Dugtrio when facing Serge because of a Generation 1 miss. To this point in the run we haven't had any major struggles, but the first one is coming up very soon. Of course, not the Wrapping Lass, she cannot do any damage to me, although I will note the fact that Stun Spore still can paralyze Shedinja, and she could potentially use Wrap to waste time because it still plays the animation while it doesn't do any damage. Luckily for me though, Dig just one-shots all of her Pokemon. And I do mean luckily because the Oddish and the Bellsprout also know Poison Powder and they could use this move. Poison as a status condition is another way Shedinja can lose these battles. Inside Rock Tunnel, the Pokemaniac can't do anything to us, but the status condition Junior Trainer could with Poison Powder. But I have answers to her Pokemon because Leech Life does 4 times damage. And as a bug type, this makes it do slightly more when compared with Dig. Okay, let's talk about the first major hurdle. It is the self-destructing hiker. All of his rock types know Rock Throw. There are 3 of them. Self-destruct will give me free wins, and Dig is super effective. But the first Geodude goes for Defense Curl, meaning Shedinja does not have enough damage to knock it out in one hit, giving it 1 turn to potentially do damage to me. But it just chooses self-destruct. Okay, perfect. Next, a second Geodude comes in, it also goes for Defense Curl, survives my hit, and uses Rock Throw. I put together damage ranges for this fight for you so you can see what my chances are beating him. If his Pokemon does not choose Defense Curl on the turn that I use Dig, then I am going to one-shot. But if he does choose Defense Curl, then I won't. And this is true for the Graveler at the end of the battle. So once I make it there, I use Dig, it does not go for Defense Curl, and I beat the self-destructing hiker in my second attempt. Honestly, not too bad. The Junior Trainer at the end of the tunnel does not have any flying type moves. Poison Powder could get me, but again, Leech Life is just too good here. I was a little bit concerned though about the Gambler between Lavender Town and Celadon City, so I save here before fighting him. The reason is his Vulpix is decently fast, and I could see Shedinja moving second against it. But after entering the battle, I see that Vulpix only has 40 speed, so this is a guaranteed win for me. Now instead of rushing through the mid-game, I'm going to do a lot of optional training, like fighting this guy who has 3 Pokemon. They give decent experience yields. I think it would be premature to assume that Shedinja is not going to have any problems against Blaine, Giovanni, and then the League. I want to make sure that I minimize backtracking by battling the trainers now, rather than having to come back and face them later when I realize I need the levels. In this spirit, I also explore the Rocket Hideout to pick up 1 more rare candy. Inside the department store, I buy Carbos because Shedinja really needs the additional speed. Normally from here, I go back and face the rival in Pokemon Tower, but instead of doing that right away, I'm going to go and face Erica next. I also know inside of her gym that I can beat all of the trainers because none of them are going to be able to deal damage to Shedinja. Plus, Leech Life is super effective, so I want to get good usage out of it in this section of the game. I don't think I'm going to keep it around until the very end of the playthrough. While doing this training, I have a chance to learn Confuse Ray, but I don't think this move is worth putting on my set. I'm saving Harden for the late game. Dig is my primary move, and both Scratch and Leech Life are okay to hold on to right now. I don't want a status move. After defeating all the trainers in the gym, my Shedinja is level 32. Now I'm ready to face Erica. This one is straightforward. If you look at her movesets, none of her Pokemon have Poison Powder, so they can't inflict damage that way. The Tangela can waste time with Bide, because again, this move also plays the animation, but other than that, she just can't do damage to me. She could be a nuisance with things like Sleep Powder or Stun Spore from both the Weepinbell and the Gloom, but even if that happens, I'm still gonna win. Leech Life does 4 times damage, the Weepinbell falls to a single hit, but the Gloom takes 2. Overall, another easy gym victory. Next is the rival in Pokemon Tower. Now, while he does have good AI here, I want to once again emphasize the fact that his movesets are not very diverse. Mostly normal moves with 2 exceptions. Mirror Move, which can't do damage to me, and Shelter's Withdraw. So as long as Shedinja doesn't use anything that can deal damage to itself, then I'm gonna win this one for free. Agatha Jr. could theoretically knock Shedinja out with Lick, but since I'm faster and Dig is super effective against her ghosts, she never gets a chance. I do want to mention that her movesets are really scary for Shedinja. If I had a Gen 1 miss here, all 3 of her moves could potentially knock me out. Nightshade deals fixed damage, Confusion can knock me out, and Lick is super effective. At the top of the tower, we have another free win against Jesse and James. By the way, they are always going to be free. There is not a move that they learn that can deal damage to Shedinja. On Cycling Road, while battling 3 trainers that give good experience, I contemplated what I wanted to do next. Quickly going through all of the damage dealing moves that Koga has, I realized that Shedinja is not going to take any damage from him. So I decided to make his gym my next destination. Inside it, while battling optional trainers like this Tamer who once again cannot damage Shedinja, I have said that a lot in this video and I'm going to stop at this point. I'm only going to draw your attention from now on to moves that can actually damage me. So while I'm beating this Tamer, I level up to 38 and teach Shedinja Shadow Ball. I contemplated not using this move with Shedinja since it's not really its signature move, but this Pokemon is so strange that I felt like it needed a little bit more help, and plus it's going to be fun, I think, using a ghost type move that deals direct damage. I'll admit I'm not being exceptionally logical here, but since this is Snowy's backport, I'm just going to give myself free access to all of the moves that were assigned to Shedinja. Okay, so let's take on Koga next. This is where I made a miscalculation. I didn't realize that the Venonats also have Toxic, and because of my bug typing, they're going to see that that move is super effective and prioritize it. Unless I'm able to one-shot them, they're going to prioritize it and poison me, which means on the next turn I will faint, and Shadow Ball does not have nearly enough damage, so clearly Koga is not where I should be right now. Instead I go to Sylph because there's a lot of trainers I can battle here for free experience. The electric types I have to be careful not to accidentally use the wrong move against. Dig is going to one-hit, but they also have Sonic Boom or Supersonic, which can knock Shedinja out. Beyond that, the flying types like Zubat and Golbat have Confuse Ray and Supersonic, so they can also cause problems. Luckily for me, Shadow Ball is doing enough damage. Also, at this point in the run, the erratic growth rate is really starting to gain momentum, and it's leveling up much faster than it was early on. With most Pokemon, I try to target level 40 for the rival, and sometimes it feels like a stretch just to get there, but with Shedinja, I'm level 45 by the time I'm fighting him. Sandslash is locked into using Poison Sting because it sees that I'm a bug type, not seeing that I have Wonder Guard. I should have mentioned before that the AI doesn't know that I have this ability, so it's just going to be using its regular scripts. The rival's team does have moves that can defeat Shedinja. The Cloyster has Supersonic, the Magneton has Sonic Boom, and the Flareon has both Ember and Fire Spin. I'm faster than all of these key targets, and I think the Cloyster isn't choosing Supersonic because it sees that all of the other moves it has deal neutral damage. So it's going to deprioritize using the normal type move. And the same thing is true for the Magneton, which is prioritizing Thunder Shock. So when we actually look at everything, objectively the only Pokemon that can deal damage to Shedinja is the final Flareon. And with only 63 speed, I'm moving first and can one-shot with a super effective Dig. Okay, let's let the hilarity ensue because Giovanni cannot damage me, but you know who can? Sabrina. And it's with one of her worst moves, Psywave, which deals fixed damage. So yes, it will inflict damage to Shedinja. I decided to fight her next because there is no way I'm going to be outspeeding her Pokemon. The Abra alone has 103 speed and Shedinja right now has 78. I figured that this was just going to take luck, and luck is exactly what's on my side. The Kadabra gets an X-Defend, goes for Recover, then uses Recover again. I use Leech Seed, it goes for Psychic, then uses Psywave, but it misses because this move is trash, and I knock it out. Last is Alakazam, I go for Dig, it chooses Recover, then Psywave while I'm underground. Dig does massive damage. Remember, Ghost-type moves don't do any damage to Psychic types in Generation 1. Alakazam recovers its health twice, actually, surviving my next Dig, prolonging the fight, then it chooses Psywave, which misses. Wonderful. This move is always awful. And as a result, I win against Sabrina in my first attempt. Alright, time to go back to Koga. This one should be fairly straightforward as long as I'm one-shotting now with my higher level, and I'm still not. If the first Venonat is surviving, this is just not a good choice right now. I get hit by poison and that's that again. Okay, instead I'm gonna train up to level 50 over the next damage rounding threshold with random trainers from around the area. None of them can damage Shedinja, so it's fairly fast. Coming back in at level 50, I can now one-shot the first Venonat, but what about the second one? Well, I have enough with a critical hit to knock it out. Okay, third Venonat. I use Shadow Ball, I do not knock it out, and Toxic inflicts poison. But in Generation 1, the status condition doesn't deal damage to you if you knock the opposing Pokemon out. I guess I could crit the Venomoth and knock it out in one turn, like that might happen, but I don't get it, and poison damage finishes me again. This is where the frustration of backtracking begins. I go to Cycling Road and battle a bunch of trainers that I skipped before this point in the run. I also go to the Fighting Dojo, which is a location I rarely talk about these days on the channel because I just don't use it very much anymore. Targeting key experience-rich trainers rather than one location with a high density of trainers actually is better in terms of speed to complete the game, and the experience yields from these trainers are just not very good. Once again, fighting types in Generation 1, absolutely good for nothing. I level to 53 and then come back to Koga. At this level, I'm one-shotting the first two Venonats, but I was really curious about the third one. I felt like it was going to survive, but it doesn't, so I move on to the Venomoth. It goes for Toxic first turn, my Shadow Ball takes it down to red health, but then because I didn't knock it out, I take poison damage and faint. I tried again. I guess I'm fishing for a critical hit here, but I'm not able to get it, so once again I lose because of the status condition. Okay, I'm gonna make a big choice now to use 7 of my 8 rare candies to level Shedinja up from 53 to 60. I don't want to do training on really inefficient trainers, and I want to get the one-shot on the Venomoth so I can finally get Surf outside of battle. By the way, in this fight we also see one of the other win conditions that I had. Koga can replace his attack on Venomoth with an X attack. When he does this, he doesn't poison me, and then I can get 2 Shadow Balls in to knock out his ace. However, at level 60, I have the damage I need to one-shot. I just hope that using these rare candies prematurely is not going to come back to dark type bite me later on in this playthrough. I decided to skip all optional trainers in the next section of the game because my speed right now at 110 is enough to move first against Blaine's Ninetales, and I think this is all I'm going to need to win. Okay, here's my strategy. Remember when I said Harden was going to be useful in the late game? Yeah, it's going to start getting useful right now. Since Blaine does not have good AI in Pokemon Yellow, I can use Harden here to boost my speed stat with the badge boost glitch. After only a single Harden, I go up to 123 speed, and that means I'm going to move first against all of Blaine's Pokemon. Now, with the badge boost also increasing my attack stat, if Dig with super effective damage has enough to one-shot his Pokemon, I will sweep for the win. The Ninetales goes down in a single hit, so does the Rapidash, not being able to use a Growl to lower my attack before the Arcanine. But this is by far his most defensive Pokemon, and it is also the Pokemon on his team that has the highest chance of knocking Shedinja out. It has 2 Fire-type moves, Flamethrower and Fire Blast. Then I hit with Dig, and it does enough damage. So, no problems from Blaine. I was not expecting that result when I went into this playthrough. Now, Giovanni is coming up next, and his most intimidating Pokemon for Shedinja is the Rhydon. It is the only Pokemon on his team that can actually deal damage to me, and that's because it has Rock Slide, but luckily Shedinja has a good choice to get around this. I said that Leech Life wasn't a really good move because it heals health, and I'm probably not going to keep it into the late game. I also said that Mega Drain is kind of useless. Well, it's not. It's going to do super effective damage, 4 times damage at that, to the Rhydon, and that makes it the perfect solution for Giovanni's team. I did say that his team can't do any damage to me, but I do want to mention what happens during this fight because some hilarious interactions play out. Number 1, the Dugtrio is trying to use Fissure on me, which is a noble attempt, but no, it won't work even though I'm slower. Also, I want to draw your attention to the Nidoqueen going for moves like Thunder. Just terrible. Anyways, Dig is one-shotting these Pokemon, so I don't really have to worry about anything. You also should note that I have set up my defense to +6. This is to badge boost my special stat to the highest possible value, ensuring that I knock the Rhydon out in a single hit. Well, I hope that I'm gonna one-shot it in a single hit. And once I use Mega Drain, I find out that Shedinja does not have the special stat required. Rhydon survives on red health, uses Rock Slide, and Giovanni misses. Yeah, this guy's not very good, so I get to use a second Mega Drain, and with that I have completed the gym challenge. Okay, time for the rival on Route 22. This one's a little bit funny. Against the Sandslash, I knew I can set up with Harden to improve my attack stat, and I want to do this for the Execute. I do not have a good move against it. The Psychic type is immune to the Ghost type, and both Dig and Mega Drain are resisted. Of course, Dig is going to do the most damage out of all my moves, so I have to use it. The reason I'm scared of the Execute is because of Stun Spore for one, it's always just annoying, but Poison Powder can knock me out. When I'm underground, it chooses this move, so maybe the AI is actually prioritizing it against it because I'm a bug type. Then Dig fails to one hit, and I get knocked out with the status condition. I tried again to see if I could roll better damage against this thing, but I don't. I roll much worse damage, which crushes my hopes. Instead of trying anything else, I'm just going to level up with rare candies 3 times to 66 and try again. Now the Execute is still not a one hit with Dig, and it is choosing Poison Powder consistently, so Shedinja goes down once again. Okay, 2 things I can do to improve this damage range. Take the long trip to the power plant and pick up an additional rare candy. This costs roughly 45 seconds of time, and in the context of this run, which is already an hour and 15 minutes roughly, I think it makes sense. Then I'm going to train south of Palatown on experience-rich trainers like Psych to level up to 64. Once I do that, then I can use the 4 rare candies I have to level up to 68 to take on the rival with a better damage rounding threshold. By doing this, I can now one-shot the Execute using Dig, which is perfect. For the Cloyster, I use Shadow Ball. I do think this will do more damage when compared with Mega Drain. Dig, of course, for the Magneton, the Kadabra, as well as the final Flareon. And I started this fight with more speed than it, so it's never going to get a chance to use a move like Fire Spin or Flamethrower. Okay, so Victory Road. I'm not going to fight any additional trainers and just go into the league at this level, 69. fine. Honestly, it's perfect. Do you think that Shedinja's going to be able to do it? And how will Harden play into the final solution? Because it is the key move that ensures that Shedinja can actually complete the game. Okay, hilarious turn of events. Shedinja takes no damage from any of Lorelei's Pokemon with the exception of Lapras. The only move it can damage me with is Confuse Ray, so I am in a really good position for this fight. I know that I used Dig to coax the Dugong into using Rest, but I didn't need to do that. There's nothing that it can do to me. This fight is basically the definition of free. The Cloyster takes 2 hits with Mega Drain, but again, it doesn't matter. The Slowbro can slow things down with Amnesia, taking less damage on every turn, but it's again irrelevant. The only question is, can the Lapras survive a Shadow Ball? If it does, there is potential for me to lose. I use Shadow Ball, cross my fingers metaphorically, but the Ice-type Ace faints. So no problems here. And in a truly ironic turn, Lorelei is not an issue at all, but Bruno is far more deadly. His first Onix and his second Onix both have Rock Slide, and the Hitmonchan has Fire Punch. That means 3 of his 5 Pokemon can knock me out, at least theoretically, because Onix goes down to a single Mega Drain, Hitmonchan goes down to a single Shadow Ball, and then on the Hitmonlee, which has trash moves against me, I can set up for free with Harden, max out my attack badge boosts. Well, I don't actually need to, I only go to +5, and that should be enough. I one-shot the Hitmonlee, the Onix, and even the Machamp goes down to a single hit. Okay, Agatha, this fight is probably the most realistically sketchy in the entire league. The Gengar can hit me with Lick as well as Confuse Ray. The Golbat can use Wing Attack and Toxic. The Haunter can use Confuse Ray and Lick. The Arbok can mess me up with Glare because Agatha doesn't have good AI. And luckily the final Gengar doesn't have very many options against me. Only Confuse Ray can deal damage, but Hypnosis can be a nuisance and give it time to roll Confuse Ray. I'm also unlucky in this fight that I'm not faster than her Pokemon. I get a crit on the first Gengar, knocking it out. Then Golbat confuses me, but I still hit with Shadow Ball. It's not enough to knock it out. She switches into Haunter. I do not hit myself using Shadow Ball against the Ghost, and I one-hit. I snap out of confusion when Golbat comes back in, finishing it, moving on to the Arbok. Okay, things are actually going really well so far. I fail to knock it out, but trigger a Super Potion, so she doesn't get a Glare in, and I move on to the final Gengar. It puts me to sleep. This gives it time to set up with Confuse Ray. Then it goes for Hypnosis again, before I have a chance to hit myself. Maybe against the Arbok I should have tried to squeeze in one Harden to badge boost and hopefully outspeed the final Gengar, but either way, when I finally wake up, I don't damage myself, hit with Shadow Ball, and since it's physical, it deals a lot of damage to her ace, and in the end, it is enough for me to take the win. Okay, so anyone who is trying to think of how Harden could be useful, here is how. Look at Shedinja's speed stat. It's 132 going into the battle against Lance. That is with the badge boost added in. I do not outspeed his Aerodactyl, and in Pokemon Yellow, it has both Wing Attack and Fly, moves that are super effective against Shedinja, so if the Aerodactyl attacks, with Lance's good AI, it is always going to choose one of these moves. The only ways I could win are if Fly misses, or Wing Attack gets a Generation 1 miss, and I'm able to one-shot the Aerodactyl. That doesn't seem like a likely outcome to me, and it is here where I will confess that last year I was supposed to release this backport on Halloween, but I ended up cancelling it after I did my first playthrough because I got to Aerodactyl, realized that I had deleted Harden, and I had no answer for the fast flying type. I didn't have time to go through do another first playthrough. After all, this Shedinja run is fairly long in terms of the scope of Pokemon Yellow playthroughs. I hadn't budgeted enough time to do another follow-up Shedinja run on top of another first playthrough with Shedinja, so I ended up scrapping the video and just using Weezing vs Arbok vs Muck as the Halloween special. This year though, I'm prepared, and even being prepared doesn't guarantee this fight. Gyarados can hit with Dragon Rage, it's a fixed damage move, and the first Dragonair can paralyze with Thunder Wave. I take a quick loss here because I don't outspeed the Aerodactyl and it doesn't miss with Fly. Then I use one Rare Candy to boost my level up to 73 before I try again. I get hit by Dragon Rage. That's a reset. Then the Gyarados chooses Hydro Pump, which does nothing, so I get to take it out for free. Next is Dragonair. Shadow Ball one-shots. Okay, that's perfect. The second Dragonair can't do anything to me, so this is my opportunity to set up with Harden. I wanted to ensure that I was going to get this damage range, so I set up all the way to +6, and then I move on to the prehistoric Pokemon. Okay, does Shadow Ball have what it takes to knock it out in one hit? Let's see. And the answer is yes. Aerodactyl falls, Dragonite is last, and I'm able to also one-shot it. Okay, so I didn't use my rare candy before the Lance battle, so I'm going to use it now. And I also hilariously used a full restore on Shedinja. This is just muscle memory. Whoops. You actually don't need to buy the full restores for Shedinja other than just healing status conditions, which could occasionally happen, like paralysis. It's not really a money-efficient way to do this, but I don't really need the Pokédollars for anything else with Shedinja in a solo challenge. Okay, now, no more delays. Let's take on the champion. Okay, quick rundown on his team. The Sandslash is locked into Poison Sting, so it can do no damage. Because of that, I have free setup here using Harden, which can max out my badge boosts and all 3 of my other stats. Next is Alakazam. The only thing it can do is Kinesis, but since I've maxed out my badge boosts, I'm both faster and have enough attack to one-shot with Dig. Okay, Executor seems like it's going to be a problem. It has Hypnosis and Leech Seed. Of course, the secondary move has a status condition that drains health. However, because it's a Grass-type move, it's going to see that it's not very effective against the Bug-type and never choose it, instead prioritizing Hypnosis when I'm not asleep, and then Stomp and Barrage when I have a status condition. This means the Executor is free. Magneton is going to choose between Thunderbolt and Thunderwave. They can't do damage, but they can paralyze. Luckily, Dig just has enough damage. Cloyster is going to be free with Mega Drain, and that leads to only the Flareon. I level up right before it, losing my attack badge boosts, but I still have super effective damage with Dig. This mid-battle level up is a downside of the erratic growth rate. Leveling up quickly in the late game is really bad when trying to badge boost. Luckily for me, Dig still has enough damage. Shedinja clocks in with its first playthrough time, well, technically second playthrough time. I failed one attempt last year before this. In this attempt, I clock in with a time of 1 hour, 23 minutes, and 16 seconds, with 18 resets, 0 blackouts at level 75, with a game time of 5 hours and 5 minutes. Okay, I don't know where we were at with the Shedinja video, whatever the last line was. It's probably not going to match up very well with this. I just finished my follow-up run, and I wanted to collect my thoughts just briefly and give a small intro to what you're about to experience. This is the epic highs and lows of Pokemon Yellow Solo Challenge running. I have never had a run go so well and so wrong in different areas. Yeah, I'm probably going to end up doing a third run because I hate to leave Shedinja here. But yeah, I also think this run has some of the most cool and niche plays that I have ever come up with. Some of them I even had to make up on the fly. So yeah, let's get into the follow-up playthrough now. This is Shedinja's second playthrough in Pokemon Yellow. When I sat down to optimize Shedinja's run, the first question I had is, do I really need level 15 for Brock? Outspeeding the Onix takes so long with the erratic growth rate. Initially in my mind, there was a choice between 2 strategies. Level 13 with good damage from Leech Life, hopefully knocking out the Onix quickly, avoiding 5 turns of Bide. Or level up to 15 and have the consistent win, always bypassing the direct damage move. If I want to avoid the Onix choosing Bide on 5 turns, it's roughly a 23.73% chance. I evaluated my strategy here based on the amount of time it takes me to level up from 13 to 15. This was a total of 5 minutes and 7 seconds in my first playthrough. So that's a lot of time. If each reset costs 30 seconds, then I can reset 10 times to Brock before I've used the same amount of time that I would have training. So that means the level 13 strategy has significantly more upside. Here's the thing though, when I started playing the second run, I realized something else you can do. You can consistently fight Brock and blackout to the Onix over and over again. This way you get another chance against the Onix, plus you're gaining experience towards leveling up. And that's important because once I get to Cerulean City, I need to be a high enough level to get by both the Goldeen as well as the rival's Spearow. In this run, I actually make it by Brock before I even get to level 13, leveling up once I defeat the Onix. My Brock split using this strategy is 11 minutes and 13 seconds, and it could be much better than this if I just got very lucky. In contrast, my previous Brock split was 19 minutes and 4 seconds, so this is a major improvement in the early game. Throughout Route 3 as well as Mount Moon, I fight every single optional trainer to level up as much as possible. Defeating Jesse and James brings Shedinja up to level 19, and then I can use the 2 available rare candies to level it up to 21 where its speed ties the Goldeen. If I had leveled up more for Brock, there is the potential of me arriving arriving here at level 20 and using 2 rare candies to outspeed the Goldeen, which would be a better scenario in this instance, but a worse scenario for Brock. Of course, there is the amazing scenario where you get by both Brock and the Goldeen at low levels and you have no resets or blackouts. But that's very unlikely. You would need a lot of luck. In this case, I have 4 resets to the Goldeen before I finally defeat it and then crush Misty. Once again, beating Brock at such a low level is not great for the rival because I'm not faster than the Spearow and I don't even have a speed tie. That said, it's pretty bad, and honestly, fighting the rival first and then getting all the experience from Nugget Bridge might be the more consistent way to approach the Goldeen trainer in general, just because it has 2 moves that can mess you up and only 3 moves in total. I think for the third run, which of course I am going to end up doing, I'll likely employ this strategy for a bit more consistency around Cerulean City. I fought a bunch of trainers on the SS hand to guarantee that I'll have 40 speed to move first against the Ponyta and avoid Ember. Once the Gentleman is defeated comes the most annoying battle in the entire playthrough. The rival Spearow is just not going to go down to a single scratch, and that's the best move that I can hit it with. Because he has good AI, he's always going to go for Peck. Last time I beat him with a critical hit, and that's how I'm going to do it again. It will be faster to reset here until I crit because it's a 7.8% chance, and leveling up to 30 or 33 is going to take way longer. I have a total of 9 resets, and then I beat his Spearow, and the rest of his team is free. And the majority of the next part of the game is free as well, with the exception of the self-destructing hiker. Although in this case, his first Geodude self-destructs, his second one doesn't, but I knock it out with my dig that was queued up from the first one. Then Graveler goes for Defense Curl, survives my hit, but just blows itself up as well. Okay, so he didn't get me. Now, the next trainer I need to talk about is the Rocket guarding the hideout. This guy has a Zubat, which survives a hit from scratch, so it can confuse you with Supersonic and mess everything up for Shedinja. Luckily, that didn't happen today because I didn't save in front of him. I would have gone back before the self-destructing hiker, or had to black out against a Zubat, which would have taken a really long time. Okay, the next ridiculous thing. Because I'm blacking out against Brock, I'm not catching a Pidgey in Viridian Forest, so I need to catch a flyer around Celadon City. I don't want to fight either Spearow or Doduo because they have Peck and can one-shot Shedinja. Instead, I'm going to go to this patch of grass, which I very rarely, actually I almost never go in this place, and I'm looking for a Pidgey, but I find a Pidgeotto, I throw a single Pokeball at it, and catch it right away. So that's some style points. I get to fly around the region on a mid-stage Pokemon in this playthrough. It's very rare that I get to do this. Kind of fun. Okay, next trainer I want to talk about, the cool trainer in Erica's gym. I'm not going to fight all the trainers, that's just a waste of time. I want to mention her because the Gloom can survive one of my hits with Leech Life, and it actually does here. The reason this is a problem is because then Poison Powder can inflict the status condition and knock Shedinja out. Other than that, her 2 other Pokemon are guaranteed 1-hits, and in this case, she uses a potion, so I win anyway. Now, Scratch not doing very much damage to the rival Spearow is a problem, but then Scratch actually comes through as the most effective move against his Fearow. If I had learned Shadow Ball by this point, my only move to damage the Fearow would be Leech Life, and that would not be fun. By the way, Struggle is not an option for Shedinja. I'm sure you can understand why. Okay, now let's get to the point of the run that I'm most excited for. I can't wait to describe this to you. Okay, so remember how Koga was a significant problem because he kept using Toxic and I would feint to poison damage? Well, I have a way to get around this. Inside his gym, there are 2 tamers that I usually fight for experience. On their teams are Arbok, which know the move Glare. I can spam Harden until they paralyze me and then knock them out. With the status condition that I normally hate, Koga can no longer damage me with one exception. His second Venonat has Supersonic. Okay, this is where I get really excited. You know how my Shedinja has Dig? I'm paralyzed, so I can trigger the invulnerability glitch by using Dig, then when paralysis activates when I'm underground, Koga's Pokemon can no longer damage me, meaning Supersonic isn't a threat and Koga can no longer win. But you know what can defeat Shedinja? This Wild Raticate in Pokemon Mansion. You're probably saying, Scott, that doesn't make any sense. It's a normal type. It has all normal type moves. How is it going to knock you out? Well, the answer is Super Fang. When Super Fang deals damage, it always ensures that it deals at least 1. It's never going to round down to 0 in this instance. There are other cases where damage does round down to 0 in Generation 1, but not this one. As a result, when that happens, I decided to take a blackout. And I tried. I swear I tried to blackout, and then I make a critical mistake. Like, the ultimate fumble. I look at my Pidgeotto's moveset, and I'm like, hey, instead of using Sand Attack, which is going to make the Raticate take longer to knock me out, I can use Whirlwind, because that move doesn't have any effect in battle. But I'm fighting a wild Pokemon. I am so used to these solo challenges and fighting trainers that I forgot what this move's effect is against wild Pokemon. So yeah, I blow the Raticate away. And then I was sitting here in Pokemon Mansion, not really sure what to do. I technically won the battle, I guess, because of my HM user, and that doesn't feel right. So I had to reset, and that took me back all the way before Koga. So this is a moment where Zealous Pawn popped into my mind. If you don't know who he is, he's someone in the solo challenging community who has got some really good times in Pokemon Yellow, and has recently pushed me to my limits trying to get better times with Arcanine as well as Seeking, as 2 examples. In his routes, I always notice that he tries to go through the Safari Zone and Pokemon Mansion at levels that prevent wild Pokemon from showing up. And that's my mistake here. So I'm actually learning something in my follow-up run. I shouldn't be going through Pokemon Mansion now. Instead, I should beat Koga for free, as I've explained before, and then I should go to Sylph, defeat a bunch of trainers, level up to the point where Repels will then get rid of all the Raticate. Also, the rival in Sylph is basically free if you do things this way. Since I have Koga's badge, I'm guaranteed to outspeed the Flareon, so he's not a problem. After him, just for convenience, I fight Sabrina. I felt like this fight could go wrong, but it doesn't. The Alakazam just never goes for Psywave when I'm above ground, and that's a win. Now exploring the mansion at level 48, no Raticate can show up, so I don't have to worry about Super Fang again. Inside Blaine's gym, I do some training up to level 50, and then before fighting the Fire-type specialist, I use 7 rare candies going up to 57. Now this fight is a bit weird. If I can get 2 badge boosts in, then I'll one-hit the Arcanine provided it doesn't go for Reflect. I actually go for the Harden on the Ninetales and it badge boosts me with Tail Whip, so then I can just sweep with Dig. Ninetales is a one-hit and Rapidash is as well. But Arcanine goes for Reflect first turn, as well as second turn, and third turn, giving me a free knockout with Dig anyway. What was supposed to be one of the most inconsistent battles ends up being trivial, and I get through it on my first attempt. Okay, inside Giovanni's gym, I need to bring your attention to something very, very precise. I want to make sure that I don't level up before the Rhydon. Because I'm an erratic growth rate, I am gaining more and more experience quickly the higher I level up. So, in order to facilitate this, I need to fight this one random cool trainer so that I level up after the Dugtrio into the Persian. Since it's a normal type, I can set up there for free with Harden and then sweep his team using Dig. The reason I'm doing this is because I really don't want to lose to the rival's Execute, which has Poison Powder, and Leech Life does 4 times damage to the Grass Psychic type. Also, then I have painful realization number 2 of this playthrough. The first one was Raticate, by the way. The second one is that I didn't pick up Strength, so I have to go all the way back from Victory Road to the Warden's house to grab the HM and waste a bunch of time in the process. Alright, this is where I will admit I got a little bit imprecise. I fight this cool trainer in Victory Road just because I wanted to go up to level 62 before Lorelei. There's no reason to do this, and the experience routing over the next section of the game really does matter. Leveling up before Lance's Aerodactyl or Dragonite would be a death sentence because both of them have moves that are super effective against Shedinja. Remember, Dragonite in Yellow version has Blizzard, Thunder, and Fire Blast. Lorelei is essentially free. I can knock out the Dugong, then set up on the Cloyster and win from there. The Lapras does survive, but she uses a potion on it instead of Confuse Ray. Okay. This next spot is, Bruno is next. And I do need to mention him. When you don't teach Shedinja Mega Drain, things go wrong. Both of the Onix have Rock Slide. I don't want to set up Harden against them because of that. I figured I can just knock them out using Dig even if it takes 2 turns. What's the chance they use Rock Slide? Well, they don't here. I move on to the Hitmonchan, and then it goes for Fire Punch. Okay, so he doesn't have good AI. He has no idea that he should be using Fire Punch every turn, and in the very next battle, he Fire Punches me again. I will have you know that I don't have a guaranteed one-hit on the Hitmonchan, or on the Onix, so this fight is actually random. It's kind of like Agatha normally is. J-Rose says the Agatha lottery. What is this? The Bruno lottery? No, it's worse than that. Right now, Bruno is dressed up for Halloween as Jason, and he is slowly slashing to death all of my hopes and dreams. I think this is the first time ever in Yellow version that I am actually scared to face Bruno in the 3rd playthrough. Eventually, I pull through and I beat him. Also, I do believe this is the only playthrough I've ever done where I've had 3 resets in a row to Bruno. Alright, so that's not very fun, but Agatha is going to be easy, right? I have Dig. I actually wrote in my notes that Bruno and Agatha are going to be free. I was so wrong. I didn't even look into them after my first playthrough. I don't know why. I was being silly. Like, Agatha actually is a lottery in this case. You don't have a good chance of winning. Gengar is faster. It has Lick and Confuse Ray. Golbat has Supersonic, Toxic, and Wing Attack. Haunter has Lick and Confuse Ray. This is actually awful. I have So many resets here. It felt really demoralizing. But eventually I scraped through with a win, with 20 resets total in this playthrough. And this is where I got really sad, because Lance is next, and I level up after the Aerodactyl, so Dragonite incinerates Shedinja with Fire Blast. This is another moment where a run like this fosters creativity. While I do lose to the Dragonite one more time, I then figured out what I should be doing. After I knock the Gyarados out, what if I try to trigger the invulnerability glitch with Dig from the Dragonair's Thunder Wave? It doesn't work out in the next battle, but eventually I do get paralyzed by spamming Harden against the Dragonair, and then I activate the glitch. By doing this, both Aerodactyl and Dragonite cannot hit Shedinja, and that is what gives me the win against Lance. Now, the whole reason I got into this kind of messy situation and made Bruno a little bit harder on myself is because I wanted Leech Life for the Champion's Executor. Look here, I one-shot it, which is really satisfying. That's so rarely the case, and then even though I level up, I'm still able to one-hit the Magneton, the Cloyster can't do anything to me, and the Flareon is still a one-hit with Dig. So in my second playthrough, I get a time of 1 hour 12 minutes and 27 seconds, with 24 resets, 8 blackouts at level 69. Kind of nice. This playthrough was nice from a story perspective. And getting back on track, I have a game time of 4 hours and 12 minutes. Overall, a major improvement over my first playthrough, and part of me does kind of want to let this be the final result, but I think it's just a bit too messy. I need to clean up the late game, plus I also don't want my mistake for getting strength slipping into the final results for Shedinja's ranking. Okay, so I haven't played it yet. I'm gonna go do that now. Wish me luck. Shedinja needs it, especially against Bruno. This time I don't get as good of a Brock split, being 26 seconds behind my second playthrough. While this result objectively just isn't on the same level, it's still quite close, and that makes me hopeful for this strategy in general. Once you reach level 13 after blackout training on the Geodude, it seems fairly reliable to beat the Onix in quick succession. I have to admit, I was expecting a lot more variance here, but we just didn't get it in my third run. In Cerulean City, it is way more consistent to fight the rival first. The fact that he can spam moves like Leer, Fury Attack, or Growl instead of attacking with Peck makes this by far the better choice over the Goldian trainer. Even if I do have resets here, and I have one in this playthrough, they are extremely fast. By the way, I'm not going to go through every reset I have in this playthrough, just know some of them are on random trainers that have Zubats with Supersonic that I can't one-shot, that kind of thing. Shedinja in general is just quite inconsistent, and for those trainers I always save in front of them to ensure that I can quickly reset if the moves go wrong for me. Another advantage of doing Nugget Bridge first is not only the fact that the Spearow is more consistent, the Goldian is as well now, because I have access to Dig before I fight her. While this doesn't give Shedinja the one-shot, it does give me a two-shot, and now I have an outspeed. In this case, Goldian confuses me, but Shedinja doesn't hit itself, so no resets here. Okay, big time jump. When defeating Koga, Paralysis is really the way to go. This allows me to get it done at a very low level, and I'm mentioning this split because it's where I start to really push my time down in comparison to my second run. Throughout the majority of this playthrough, I have been behind. Rival 2 is an exception because I reordered that section of the game, but now for the first time in the mid-game, I'm finally under a minute of time difference between the two playthroughs. I make one small player error in Blaine's gym. I needed to skip this guy until I get to level 48 and have 86 speed because the Ponyta has 85 speed. It's actually decently fast for an NPC Pokemon. As a result, it just one-shots me, I have a quick reset, and then I can continue with my training and fight him later. This training brings me to level 49, and then before Blaine I'm going to use rare candies. Notably, fighting the rival first in Cerulean City meant I didn't have to use too early on, so I have more available now. I go all the way up to level 58, and then I fight the Fire-type specialist. In this case, I think the best strategy is setting up Harden twice on the Ninetales, getting my badge boosts, and then sweeping his team. If I get unlucky with a Flamethrower or a Confuse Ray, then I just reset quickly and try again. In this case, I don't get unlucky though, and I beat Blaine on my first attempt. Once again for Giovanni, I'm not changing my strategy. I'm keeping Leech Life for this battle and then the rival that follows to one-shot the Execute. This is where things do change. After knocking out Lorelei's Lapras, I teach Mega Drain because I want to have a good time against Bruno. This way I can consistently one-shot both of the Onix. Actually, I make a mistake and I click Shadow Ball on the first one. Luckily, I get a critical hit and knock it out in one turn. So that is me getting by with luck, I guess, and that's exactly how I have to defeat the Hitmonchan. If it rolls Fire Punch, I lose. If it doesn't, I win. Well, there's also a third option. Bruno can use the next defend, and that's exactly what he does. As a result, I get by the Fighting-type specialist with no resets in my third playthrough. Agatha is a different story though. This fight goes really badly for me in this playthrough. I think you could do a lot of Shedinja runs and eventually get the time quite low, maybe under an hour if you have perfect luck. And this fight does require a lot of luck. There are two ways to get through it. Number one is just attack and hope that you win, even though her Pokemon are outspeeding you. The other way is to try and take more control in the battle by using Harden twice on the first Gengar. This can work out for you. She can switch her Pokemon out, which loses time. She can also use the move Mega Drain, doing nothing, or Substitute, also doing nothing. She can confuse you, but then you don't hit yourself. So really the only guaranteed way that she beats you in this battle, if you're setting up, is if the Gengar uses Lick, or if she switches into the Golbat and then attacks with a move like Wing Attack or Toxic. Although the last of these moves can miss, so that's another way which Shedinja can win and get the setup it needs. I'm going with the setup strategy because I want to ensure that once I get set up, I'm going to sweep her team and not have any issues. There is one flaw with this. The erratic growth rate will level up once I reach the final Gengar, so it can use Confuse Ray and Shedinja can knock itself out. This does happen once in this playthrough, which is frustrating, but eventually, after many resets, I finally defeat Agatha and move on to Lance. Here, the paralysis glitch strategy as well as the harden strategy for the outspeed on the Aerodactyl are both viable. I personally at this point prefer the paralysis strategy just because it's a little bit more stylish, and if I level up going into the Dragonite and lose my badge boosts, I'm still going to win. That said, it's a bit inconsistent because you have to get paralyzed on the turn you're trying to deal damage with Dig. If that never happens and you set up too many badge boosts, then you have less chances to roll for it before the Aerodactyl comes in. Granted, if that does happen, you can still set up against the Aerodactyl with the glitch because the Aerodactyl can use Fly, wasting turns, giving you time to trigger paralysis. In this case, I have one reset, but on my second attempt, I get my invulnerability set up and then I sweep Lance's team. That puts me 4 minutes and 8 seconds ahead of my former pace going into the champion. And as we've seen before, even without Leech Life for this battle, he is not really a threat. The only Pokemon on his entire team that can deal damage to Shedinja is the Flareon, and since I naturally outspeed it and one-shot with Dig, the champion is defeated and I clock in with my final time, 1 hour, 8 minutes and 26 seconds. 19 resets, 11 blackouts at level 71 with a game time of 4 hours and 12 minutes. Interestingly enough, better real time than my second playthrough and the exact same game time. I have to say, Shedinja is so unique and I had an absolute blast playing and optimizing this run. It feels very similar with Smeargle, where you have to think about the game entirely differently. And speaking of Smeargle, I haven't ranked it in my Pokemon Yellow tier list yet, just as an oversight. Back when I did that race, I wasn't really ranking backport Pokemon, so I never got around to it. Let's do that now. My personal best with the little painting dog was 1 hour, 5 minutes and 12 seconds, so that earns it a placement just behind Omanyte, ahead of Hitmonchan in the E tier. Not a great result for the very unique Pokemon, and Shedinja's result was very similar. In this case, earning the spot just behind Hitmonchan ahead of Gloom, also in the E tier. Only one placement away from Smeargle. I'm excited. I can think of at least 2 more Pokemon that are extremely unique that I still haven't played. Although, I'm not sure that they're going to be more fun than these 2. I expect at least one of them to be complete pain. But I'm going to spread them out, so I won't be doing them this year. And also, speaking of this year, this is the end of Halloween month. It has been an absolute blast. I had so much fun with these runs. Surprisingly, I really enjoyed the Crystal playthroughs, especially with the bug types in those games. In general, I think I like playing Pokemon Crystal the least out of all of the games I play on this channel, but Crystal version really surprised me this time around. So yeah, I had a lot of fun. Go check those videos out if you haven't already seen them. Thanks so much to all the YouTube members and Patreon supporters for making this all financially possible. You would think that things would slow down in November, but they aren't really going to. We're going to do our best to keep the pace up, and then starting in December, there will be a video every day for the final month of the year. So happy Halloween, everyone. If you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next video.